Warning, the following material is extremely disturbing. On Grave Matter, we try to be as accurate as possible and we collect information from many different sources. We don't condone or glorify murder, and we try to be as sensitive as possible to victims and their families while approaching a serious subject matter with a sense of humor. Listener discretion is advised.
Hurry up, fuck. All right, finally. Welcome to episode 10, double fucking digits, guys. What's going on? It's your boy Chris Lang, live out of New York. Jillian Gentry as well.
What's up? In the house.
Out of fucking Brooklyn. Pizzeria. Yo, we're getting better every time, all right? If you don't fucking like it, move on. No one cares. No one fucking cares.
Spruce trees.
Yeah, fucking spruce trees. What up? Yo, I don't fucking know, man. Maybe I'll get a movie deal out of this or some shit. So I don't know how it's gonna work. Whatever. Welcome to episode 10, people. We are very, very happy that we are making it into double digits.
Holla.
Holla, holla, holla. We have a good episode, as usual, in store for you this evening. Two weird-ass individuals.
Yeah.
Mine's kind of crazy. Mine is Mark James Robert. Like, they just kept going with the first names. They were like, fuck it. It was like,
Stephen Carlton.
Mark James Robert Essex is his name. I didn't even realize that until right now, but that is who it is. And who are you talking about, Joe?
I'm talking about Joe Ball. Real straightforward. Not a whole bunch of names.
Joe Ball.
My guy is so weird that a lot of people didn't even believe he existed in real life. So
yeah, I've heard of this dude. I found a list of like before we started this concepts, like killers that we would consider doing, and Joe Ball was on the first list. Mm-hmm. He was like number 7 or 8, so pretty close to our original blueprint, I'd say.
Yeah, he's interesting. I don't know, and there's so much conflicting information on him, so it's like
good.
Yeah, it
good.
made for real easy research, let me tell you.
Yeah.
One article said 2 years, one article said 5 years.
Fuck it.
8 years, you know what I mean?
Fucking 3 years. What's the problem?
just get the median.
By the way, I love our New York fans. We have a lot of people in New York, and I do not mean to. I know I'm probably butchering it. Fucking butchering it, you know what I'm saying? Fucking Brooklyn butcher, whatever.
Say stoop again.
Yo, you find me on the fucking stoop.
Next to the spruce trees.
Next to all the spruce trees out there, you know? The fucking garbage, man.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I'm talking about Mark James Robert Essex, an American, kind of a serial killer, kind of a terrorist, kind of a racial dude, and a veteran. Very, very strange situation. So that'll be very interesting. We'll kind of recap the events that and it was really two big events, and that's it, but they were very, very big events indeed. And so we'll talk about
war
that.
Was your homie in?
So he was not in the war. He was Vietnam era, but he was a dental technician in San Diego, so which is interesting because I did my time in San Diego, 4 years, and so I'm kind of familiar with some of the naval medical facilities, and obviously it's a lot different now. This was in 1969 when he joined, but
yeah, so your guy wouldn't have run into my guy, so I was just trying to figure out maybe they served together.
What was your dude? What's up with your guy?
World War I.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Pretty sure those were a little bit far.
I don't even think dentists were invented yet.
That wasn't that long ago. What? 19-aught something.
19-aught something.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know.
I don't know what they did. Tie a donkey to your teeth and pull it out or something.
You use the butt of your rifle.
Ooh, that's one way. Also, we are recording premium content now. And I want to hear back from you guys as to some ideas. We have some cool stories that we're going to share, but if there's some topics that, we haven't thought of, or, specificities, I'm pretty sure that's how you say that word, that you want to bring to our attention, please do hit us up on our Facebook or wherever the fuck. We're everywhere.
A fan from our Facebook page actually requested that I do a story on this particular guy that she suggested, for lack of better words. I have not done that yet. I will. It's short, so it'll probably be a week when we have Like I have 2 short stories and you have 1.
Okay.
That's what I'm kind of waiting for. So don't give up on us. We're working on it.
Roger that. Even though it wasn't directed towards me, that's fine. All right. Well, let's go ahead and kick this off. Who wants to go first?
I think you want to go first.
I kind of do. I don't know why, but I do. I'm excited to talk about this dude. So let's kick it off without further ado. Mark James. I can't even say this guy's name now that I've realized it's all first names except for Essex, which is basically Mark James Robert and a suffix. I mean, it's fucking, you know what I mean? He was an American killer, is how I labeled him. Julie. Shout out to Julie. This is one of my friends from work who is great. She's taken me under her wing and kind of taught me everything. But we had this funny discussion. You know, I just got done with training or whatever. We had this funny discussion, and I was like, oh, yeah, we have a podcast on serial killers. And she's like, oh, well, that person wasn't a serial killer. And it was like this inside joke about being all nitpicky with the definition of serial killer. So today she sent me the FBI definition of what a serial killer was. I was like, I'm going to shout you out tonight. But I think that's why I wrote American Killer, Julie, instead of serial killer. So, but he was an American killer, and by definition of the FBI, he was a serial killer, but not a typical one, right? So, like I said, it was really 2 major incidents that this guy was involved in, and nothing more than that. He died in the second one, so and they were only 7 days apart, which is really interesting.
Spoiler alert.
I know, right? This took place in the New Orleans area. Well, fucking downtown New Orleans, actually. 1973. The first event was on New Year's Eve of 1972. So really, 1973. He killed 9 people, including 5 policemen. And then he wounded 13 others.
That was on the first event?
That's total.
Okay.
That's over both of them, right? So he was born in Kansas in 1949. And he was pretty much raised there his entire childhood. I didn't find much information on this guy's childhood, other than that he was from Kansas, and then everything kind of started after he graduated high school in 1967. So at age 18, he graduated high school, and he went to college there, and after 1 semester, he dropped out. He was like, fuck this. I can kind of relate with that. I mean, you know, so far, you know what I'm saying? He kind of hung out for a little while, and then 2 years later, at 20 years old, in 1969, he joined the Navy as a dental technician and hated it. Completely hated it.
The dental technician or the military? Or both?
Both. Well, okay, so his thing was he said that it was a period of extreme racial abuse. So, and he was in San Diego. And he was like, yeah, it was just, the whole system is racist, and I hated it. He was a black guy? Or? He was a black guy, yeah. Okay. He's African American. So he hated it so much that in October of 1970, October 19th, he decides to just dip out. He goes UA, right? Unauthorized absence. So he leaves, and being in the military, you know that after 30 days of being UA, they can charge you with something else. They can charge you with, I don't know if it's desertion or AWOL or what it is, but it becomes a lot more serious after 30 days. So right. October 19th of 1970, he leaves, and he comes back November 16th, 3 days before that. And so I'm pretty sure that's why. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that he came back before that 30 days was up.
Kind of thought it over and was like, maybe I don't want to be in prison.
Because they'll throw your ass in jail. They don't fucking care. You know what I mean? And so a couple months later, he was discharged. It was called a general discharge back then. This was in, remember, he came back in November. So February, he was discharged of 71 for a failure to adapt due to character and behavior disorders, right?
Oh,
that were unspecified. The next 2 years become a very, very interesting time frame for this dude, for Mark Robert James Essex. So the next 2 years, he immediately, and he's in San Diego at this time, right? So immediately after getting out, he drives north to San Francisco, which if you look at the time frame, you look at what's going on, civil rights is huge. It's, just after the 60s. San Francisco's the middle of it. The hippie movement started there at Haight-Ashbury, the intersection. So it's a hotbed for activity, for activism and, civil rights movements and things like that. So he starts rubbing shoulders with these radical black teachers that are teaching him. I think at first the teachings were not, they were kind of like the Dr. King nonviolent type stuff. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, they turned to being more violent. King was assassinated in 1968, and at that point, a lot of people changed gears as to in the black community. Maybe this nonviolence isn't working, so he decides he's going to become violent. And at this time, heads to New York to join the Black Panthers. It didn't say how much time he spent with each one, but it's over the period of 2 years for sure. So, discharged in February of 71, and shows up to New Orleans in the winter of 72. So 2 years, basically. So the Black Panthers were started in 1966, and then they moved to New York in spring of 68, right?
Okay.
The New York chapter was founded by people from San Francisco, people from Oakland. And so I wonder if word got around that was a movement, and then he went over there, you know?
Right.
Membership of the Black Panthers peaked in 1970, and so he was really coming in at a hot time, if you will. You know what I mean?
I can picture that scene from Forrest Gump.
I thought about Forrest Gump the entire time I was researching this shit. I really, really did. When they go in the room, and they're like, yeah, exactly.
I didn't mean to ruin your Black Panther party.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought about.
Oh, shit.
But whatever. He became very radicalized, and he became a very violent person. He decides to go on a mission to kill white people. His two main targets are white people and policemen. If they're both, then awesome. You know what I mean? That's his mission. And then we'll just talk about the two main incidents that actually occurred. So the first incident was on New Year's Eve of 1972. No, I wrote 1927. How about that? Definitely not 1927. 1972 in New Orleans, right? So it's New Year's Eve. He's 23 years old, and he cruises down to Perdido Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But I looked it up on Google Maps. It's 1 block from the police station. Well, so the central lockup, right? So the big downtown jail or whatever.
I bet that place sees a lot of faces.
Yeah, no kidding, right? It's very, very busy.
Especially in March.
Why? Oh, yeah. Okay, I was like, wait, what? Yeah, now for sure. So he's 1 block from the police station in central lockup. The police headquarters is there, New Orleans Police Department. The Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office is right there. The municipal court's right there. There's an inmate information building right there. And it's just off of I-10, literally right next to I-10, right? Mm-hmm. It seems that, obviously, it was a purposefully chosen place, right? Mm-hmm. Purposely? Did I say purposefully? Purposefully chosen place. He
consciously chose it.
Yeah, he consciously chose the place for sure. He hid in a parking lot across from the police lockup. And then he sees 2 cops walking towards him, right? One of them is a fellow black male, a 19-year-old cadet named Alfred Harrell, and his lieutenant, Horace Perez. He jumps out, he shoots both of them. Like it's nothing, right? And he has this weird idea that, like, he's going to distract whoever noticed with firecrackers. So he has firecrackers, and he, like, shoots them and then lights firecrackers. And, like, if someone
that worked in The Departed. You ever seen The Departed? Leonardo DiCaprio and Jack.
I don't think I have seen it.
They're mobsters or whatever, and they go in and they're shooting this guy, and Frenchie, one of the other characters, is throwing, like, firecrackers into the street so that nobody can hear the gunshots. So it's not that crazy of an idea.
Well, he shot 2 cops at the police station.
That's the crazy idea.
Yeah, so he shot 2 cops at the police station and then threw some firecrackers out there.
Afterwards?
Right, as a distraction. And then he darts across the freeway, across I-10, and he runs up the street into Girt Town, which is like right next to Holly Grove, where Lil Wayne's from. You know what I mean? It's known as a high crime area and a very anti-police area, right?
Yeah.
The place is full of, like, these manufacturing warehouses. I was on, like, Google Street View checking it out, and some of the old buildings are still there. I think the one that he hid in is still there. So I was checking that out. And, yeah, it looks like it would be extremely difficult to find anybody over here. So, runs across the street, high crime area. Everyone hates the cops. He breaks into one of these manufacturing buildings, and he sets off the alarm while doing it, right? Mm-hmm. 2 officers respond to the scene, but... And even though it's just across the freeway, these officers don't know that it's the same person from the shooting. Like, there's so much crime in this area. They're like, oh, okay, well, someone broke in somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
The 2 officers were Edwin, I'm not sure how to say it, Hoslin, Hoslin Sr. and Harold Blappert, which is the funniest fucking name I've ever heard in my life. I mean, that sounds like fucking flubber sticking to the wall.
Paul Blart.
Paul Blart. Hey, fucking Blappert. You know what I mean? Go give me some donuts, Blappert, you fucking asshole. I don't know. You know what I mean? Anyways. So they pull up on the scene, right? And they're a dog unit, right? They're a canine unit. So they have their German Shepherd in the back.
You better disclaim this if a dog's about to die.
No.
People will lose their ever-loving minds.
Yeah, no kidding. No, so that's not what happens, but the dog does die. No, I'm just kidding.
Probably by now it has, I'm sure. Well, fucking dogs die. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, man, you're right. It's a sad
Mine
situation.
doesn't, but...
Not in this situation. That's true. Frog is... Yeah, we've talked about that before. Frog's about 37 years old, so... Officer Hosley gets out of the car to get the dog out of the back seat.
So we've decided with Hosley, huh?
Hosley. Yeah,
Okay.
Let's go with Hosley.
All right.
And Blappert's still in the front seat being fucking Blappert. I'm just kidding. No, it just doesn't that sound like, you know what I mean? All right, whatever. So, I'm just not doing shit.
Fucking Blappert just sitting there listening to the radio.
Fucking being Blappert, you know what I mean? Essex pops out of a hiding spot, and as Hosley is getting the dog out of the back seat, he pulls up and he shoots him in the back 4 times, right? And at least 4 times. And then at that point, I think what happened, it didn't say it, but it sounded like he was able to get into the back seat with the dog, and they kind of they held each other in the back seat, like trying to hide. You know what I mean?
Hosley and the dog?
Yeah.
Okay.
Meanwhile, fucking Blappert pulls out his gun, slow as can be, in typical
Get my
Blappert
whoopee cushion out of the way.
typical Blappert fashion. You know what I mean? And he returns 4 shots. He couldn't even see exactly where he was, because if you looked at this place on Street View, I mean, you could tell at nighttime. It's just nooks and crannies and crevices.
I've been over there at night before. It freaks me out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We actually got rear-ended over there at night before.
It's kind of like, I know we have a lot of listeners in San Antonio, when you're like closer to downtown off of like San Pedro or like the St. Mary's Strip or something like that. Some of the more industrial areas like over there, it's kind of like that. Like Josephine and Grayson, except more crowded, more congested. So lots of little places to hide. It was nighttime, so Blappert is just aiming at the guy's muzzle flash. He can't see him. Mm-hmm. So he's just kind of shooting in the dark.
Right.
But he scares him off, right? So
Blappert?
yeah, Blappert, I mean, it was more...
Hightails it?
Yeah, no. So Blappert scares Essex by shooting towards him. And Essex runs away. I almost said more Blapperts show up. More police officers show up. Blappert. And it was like fucking... They're just clones of each other. You know?
It's like a clown car.
Fucking look at this fucking clown car full of Blapperts. You know what I mean?
Thank God we think to each other funny.
I know. These people are like, what the hell is going on, dude? Enough about this fucking name. I think it's weird. Whatever. So backup arrives. Clown car full of Blapperts shows up. And they're all dog units too, by the way.
Blapperts.
They're just clones of the other dog.
And Blappert dogs.
Blappert dogs, yeah. So they show up.
Wishbones.
Yeah, fuck it. It's gotta be something equally stupid, but backup shows up. They send the dogs out looking in the nearby buildings, and they don't find anyone. He gets away.
They are Blappert dogs.
They're
like, got nothing. What's somebody's barbecuing?
They just come back with steak, some Cajun food. You know what I mean?
Oh shit.
Anyways, Hosley died.
Blappert dog
What
didn't
fucking
help.
terrible timing, huh? Blappert didn't do anything. So, 3 weeks later, actually, Hosley did pass away in the hospital.
3 weeks later?
3 weeks later. And it's not the only time that happened. There's 2 events, remember? It happens to someone else later. So, he was using this 44 caliber revolver. It was like a 44 Magnum or something like that, but it was, I think, a little bit smaller. It was a different type of model back then. But using his 44, and yeah, he died a few weeks later in the hospital.
And Blappert's still doing fine, huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Point.
Fucking blapping along. I don't know. The second incident, remember, that was New Year's Eve. The second incident is January 7th, right?
Okay.
And in strange criminal fashion, I guess we'll call it, it starts at 10:15 in the morning. I don't know many serial killers or killers that start at 10:15 in the morning.
No.
Encyclopedia Jill over here. I don't know.
The cover of darkness seemed to work okay for him. They didn't know who he was at that point. Like, what did he think? Why didn't he just want to wait until after supper? Like,
because at this point, he didn't care. So as you're about to find out, we'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about that a little bit now. 10:15 in the morning, Essex shoots a local grocer by the name of Joe Perniciaro. I don't know. He's obviously in the mafia. Whatever he is. Well, it was obviously a mistake. This guy's definitely not a grocer. Right? Once again with his .44. And by the way, this is all 7 minutes. I mapped it out. Trust me, it's 7 minutes from the first location, right? Just up the street.
okay.
There's a couple houses up the street. And after he shoots this grocer, which I don't think it was at the store. I think it was just on the street or whatever. You know what I mean? He runs up to a nearby house, and this dude, Marvin Albert, is sitting in his driveway in a 1968 Chevelle off of South White Street. Which I guess, it's 1972 or whatever. It makes sense. But that's awesome. Nice car. He carjacks him. And then he just drives downtown, which is, just a couple miles. You know what I mean? It's not like he went very far.
Right.
But he goes straight to the hotel at 330 Loyola Street, which is directly adjacent to the city hall, as well as there's another court there. There's a park there. Once again, a very public servant-related area, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a Howard Johnson. It's a hotel. So he parks in the garage, and he starts climbing the stairs, right? So the garage is like the first 4 floors or whatever. And, So he starts climbing the stairs with his guns in the external stairwell, and like all the freaking fire doors are locked. And so he's like, fuck, how am I supposed to kill all these people? So he finally goes up to the very top, the 18th floor, and breaks in the door, and there's 3 maids standing there.
Sucks for them.
3 black maids. So he looks at them and he goes, don't worry, I'm just here to kill white people. Right.
Where did I hear that recently?
And they're like,
I heard that yesterday somewhere.
really?
Yeah. I got to think about it for a minute. I heard yesterday, God, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure you'll interject. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, as soon as it comes to my mind, it'll come out of my mouth. That's how it works.
Okay.
It's like a slip and slide. It's like,
So he breaks in on the 18th floor. There's 3 maids standing there, all African American. And he looks at them and he's like, I'm just here to kill white people. And they're like, oh, thank God. And then they run downstairs and call the police. Right? So,
yeah.
And he lets him go. Now, there's a couple up there that's not so lucky. 27-year-old Dr. Robert Stiegel and his wife, Betty. They're on their fucking honeymoon, right? Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm pretty sure they're on the top floor. I'm pretty sure they're in a honeymoon suite. He's a doctor. I've done the fucking math, right?
Yeah.
They walk out of their suite. Remember, it's shortly after, it's probably about, 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning at this point. Go out to get brunch or whatever. And he fires right into his chest. And as she turns around to run, he gets her in the back of the head. So I think they both died, not instantly, but within a couple minutes. She died instantly. He died within a couple minutes. So, he was a doctor. I think he tried to perform surgery on himself, but it was unsuccessful ultimately. So he dragged them back into their room, the honeymoon suite, doused the phone books in gasoline, and then proceeded to put them under the curtains and set the room on fire.
I'm so annoyed I can't remember this. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So at this point, he can't really find anybody else on the 18th floor. So he goes down the stairs, picks a random floor, the 11th floor. He hears some commotion going on, right? As he's hearing the noise, he doesn't exactly know where it's coming from, but he just starts unloading into the doors. Some of the doors open. He goes in there and he shoots at several people out the windows. Doesn't care at all. At this point, there are 2 major employees on the floor. The assistant manager, Frank Schneider, as well as the general manager of the entire hotel, Walter Collins. He shot both of them. Unfortunately, he did. Frank Schneider was dead on arrival when the first responders got to him. And once again, Walter Collins, the general manager, died in the hospital 3 weeks later. So I wonder if it's something about the caliber of that bullet or what, you know what I mean? But it's like, yay, you're going to die, but you'll have 3 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Sucks.
Yeah, it does. So the emergency responders, the crew, there was firefighters and policemen, paramedics, all that kind of stuff. They were almost immediately on the scene, being that they were at damn near City Hall,
Yeah.
And they actually came up with a plan because they weren't used to these types of situations. This was basically a terrorist mass shooter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's got some military training. I mean, he's a Navy dental tech, but it's better than a lot of people, right? Mm. So the firefighters, they come up with this plan to put police officers on the fire ladder and then kind of swing them up to the building. And then he just starts shooting at them out of the window and at the firefighters. So they have to lower the ladder. It doesn't work. And he's still running around the hotel. He decides that he's going to go get a better vantage point. So he's like, I'm going back to the 18th floor. I saw a roof door. And so he goes up there, kicks that open. Next thing you know, he's on the roof. And he's aiming down at the street and across different rooftops. Mm-hmm. And he's just looking for... Because, the first responders are down there. It's like he's playing Grand Theft Auto. And, You know what I mean? It's crazy. He's like starting to aim at the police and shoot them. And I don't know what kind of rifle he had, but it definitely worked, right?
Right.
So the first thing he does is he shoots and kills 2 officers immediately, Philip Coleman and Paul Persigo. There's another guy, an officer named Ken Solis, who was shot in the shoulder as he was running. And there's some famous pictures of him and another officer, Dave McCann, trying to stop the bleeding. The pictures are by G.E. Arnold. It's a Times photographer, and they're famous pictures. They're incredible. One of them is of, I believe, Philip Coleman, unfortunately, who is dying in the picture after being shot in the head. So,
oh, man.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And they're cops, you know what I mean? This isn't... the police are livid at this point.
Right.
This goes on for fucking hours. All day, right? Literally all day. Mm-hmm. It starts making the live news back in 72. That was not as easy, you know what I mean? To have all the pieces in place to make that happen so quickly. So the deputy superintendent of the force is there, and he's running around trying to save people. He gets shot. Luis Sergo. I think he survived, though. So at this point, it's a huge fucking deal. It's been on the news all day. Something really cool happens. There's a Marine, right? He was a lieutenant colonel at the time, eventually became a lieutenant general, which is a 3-star general, right? Mm. And he was a pilot. He was a helicopter pilot. And there's a reserve station in New Orleans, right? I'm not sure what the military situation in New Orleans was at the time. I know there's definitely one Navy veteran on a rooftop. Oh, man. But there is, basically a reserve base in New Orleans, right? So this guy, Lieutenant Colonel Chuck Pittman, says... He gets one of his junior Marines and he says, call the police department, have a sergeant call me back. I want to offer one of our helicopters. We'll put Marines on it with guns.
Sounds good to me.
Sergeant calls him back and says, sounds good to me. Right? So he launches a CH-46 loaded with armed men. And they exchanged gunfire for hours with the helicopter. The helicopter was just, it came from right there, so it was just sitting there floating around. I don't know if it had to refuel or what. I don't think so, but it was just flying around for 2 hours, you know what I mean?
The building he's on top of?
Yeah, because what had happened is he was pinned because he had trapped himself inside this concrete, bunker-like structure on the roof, right? And then he would pop out and, fire a couple shots here and there. Well, he winds up being in there for a long time. And unbeknownst to him at the time, to Essex... there's sharpshooters finally arriving on the scene in addition to the helicopter that are lined up now on the rooftops of surrounding buildings.
Wow.
He didn't know it, obviously. You're about to find out. He steps out to shoot the helicopter like it's fucking Call of Duty, and everybody unloads on him. All the sharpshooters hit him. The helicopter hits him. The Marines hit him. And that's what ended the situation. The autopsy, in order to... I saw a picture of the body. It still looked like a body. You could tell it was a human remains. But the body had over 200 bullet wounds in it. So
man, so he's not buoyant anymore at all.
Not even a little bit. Dexter would be very proud. No, so they lit him up like a fucking jack-o'-lantern. Really, seriously, they really did.
He'll never go through a metal detector again without lighting it up.
Yeah. Full of lead. Full of that motherfucking plumb bomb. You know what I'm saying?
I haven't heard that in a while.
200 times, you know what I mean? And typically people shoot to kill. They were shooting to dismember, to disintegrate, you know what I mean? Yeah. And the reason I say that is because I know it's true, because there's stories of witnesses hearing the police officer scream, "This is for my fucking brother!" Like, die, motherfucker! Like,
wow.
Like, not even police officers. At that point, it was like a gang related. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they killed him real good. So, and then after he was dead, they continued to shoot him. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't give a fuck. So
I was trying to find that earlier when you told me about that particular part. I was trying to find that clip from Home Alone where the guy's like, I'm going to give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly yellow.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty much what it was, except it was a helicopter and it was hours. It was like nighttime at that point.
I couldn't get it isolated though. And every time I tried to like save it.
Is that what you were doing on the phone?
I was trying to save that little part and it kept restarting it from the beginning. And I was like, I'm trying to watch a movie.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, all in all, I mean, that's Mark Essex, Mark James Robert Essex. He wound up over a period of 1 week, more or less, shooting 19 people, 10 of which were police officers. And his body was actually buried back in Kansas, where he was from. Emporia, Kansas, I think is the name of the place. So, interesting. He did not make it to prison because he was shot over 200 times on sight. And I love that.
I'm good with it. Whatever.
And that's the story of Essex. And talk a little bit about yo guy.
I reckon. Let's see.
Mr. Ball.
Mr. Ball.
What a name, huh?
Yeah. He had a lot fewer letters in his name than yours did, for sure.
Yes.
Mine's got 7 letters in it.
Well, mine had several names.
Yeah. Joe Ball, the Alligator Man. So he's got quite a few aliases. The Alligator Man, the Butcher of Elmendorf, or
Texas.
Bluebeard of Texas. Bluebeard of South Texas. Do you know
I've
where
heard that.
Elmendorf is? Do you know where it is?
It's down in the valley, isn't it?
It's Bear County, so it's like
Okay.
It's real close
Just
to San
south.
Antonio. Yeah. So he was born in 1896. So,
1896.
yeah, this is a little bit of. It was some time ago.
Okay, I got a quick story.
Okay.
I went to Big Bend National Park. This is when the fire ant thing. That trip, right?
Okay.
Me and my dad were driving in the middle of nowhere. We had a old red van. It was an old Dodge Caravan.
Okay.
That my dad had bought from like a used car dealership that had like leaks in the roof and it was like a total ripoff. It was terrible, right?
Okay.
Dad kept the van. And as we're driving in the middle of nowhere, me and my 7-year-old self or whatever the fuck, we get a flat tire.
Can't even imagine you at that age.
Yeah, it's
Ridiculous.
It's better that you don't, you know what I mean? No. So we got a flat tire and we're like, no cell phones, you know what I mean? It's like 1996 or whatever.
Back in the old days.
Back in the old Wift.
Tumbleweeds rolling down the road.
Yeah, there were tumbleweeds rolling down. Fucking armadillos, too. This shit is Texas. We don't play. Willie Nelson showed up, started playing his fucking guitar. It was awesome.
It was blues, wasn't it? Because of the flat tire?
Yes.
And your dad was like, damn this red van
like,
from this shitty ass car.
Sure, it's good music, though, Chris. It's like I don't know, people that know my dad, he doesn't talk like that, but he does. You know what I mean? So
I met him once briefly.
Really?
When your kid was born.
Did he say some weird shit? He always says some weird shit.
I don't know. I met a whole bunch of new people that day.
That's true. Yeah.
That was the first time I met Jade as she was giving birth.
Oh, wow.
Or right after she had him, I guess.
Damn. You're like, hey, it's nice to meet you. You look like shit.
No. I was like, you look amazingly well for what you've just been through.
Yeah, true. Mom power.
Yeah.
So we get a flat tire and we're out there and my dad doesn't have a spare. And so...
You're telling me that car didn't come with a spare? What a ripoff.
I know. So we're sitting there like, fuck. It must have been 30 minutes or an hour we sat there just trying to like, all right, well, the nearest gas station's like, we're going to have to, you know what I mean? Trying to figure it out. Because it's 110 degrees and I'm fucking, you know what I mean? Like 7 years old and my dad's, unprepared. So this old pickup truck rolls up, right?
Right.
And it's a fucking Native American dude, an Indian inside. Mm. And he stops and like he's so old, like it's unbelievable. And so we start talking to him and his truck doesn't have seatbelts. It's super old, you know what I mean? And he's like, I'll take you to the nearest whatever. And we were like, okay. He's too old to try and hurt us. Like, there's no fucking way. You know what I mean? Like, even his gun was probably rusty if he had one. So we start talking and my dad's like, oh, I have some old patients. And he was like, how old are you? And he's like,
Have some old patience. It's a great fucking conversation.
I mean, what else are you gonna say in the middle of it? So he's like, oh, I'm 90, I'm 96 or whatever, or I'm 90 or whatever he said, right? He's like, I was born in 1885 or something like that.
Holy shit. Hey, guy, if you're listening, happy birthday.
Jesus, Jill. So, fuck yeah, thanks, right? He was like, yeah, I was born in like 1885 or whatever. And I was like, we all kind of paused.
You're like, I can't even do that math yet.
And my dad's like, he was born in 1989. And he was like, you're not 90 something, you're 100 and something. And he was like, oh, I guess I am. He's like, 1880, no. He's like, wow, the world's changed and da-da-da-da-da. And like, knew all this shit. And it was the craziest drive of our lives. And he took us, we bought a tire at this shop. And then he drove us back there and even helped us change it. Like, he insisted. I mean...
Do you think maybe he just didn't know math?
No. He was old as fuck. Like, there's, like, that guy was old as fuck.
That reminds me of a story.
We could not believe he was behind the wheel of a motor vehicle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Probably didn't have a license or anything.
Oh, fuck no. He wasn't even a citizen. He's a Native American. He didn't even have a license. He was like,
I think he's the ultimate citizen, if you want to get
you know what I mean? He's number one, numero uno. Like,
he's like, I don't have to have a driver's license. I'm grandfathered, great-grandfathered
traded into Buffalo.
Yeah, it reminded me of a story that has nothing to do with anything you just said. But, so, Florida, crazy Florida.
Crazy Florida.
I just started driving. I was probably 17 or 16. I don't know. And I'm driving along, and I come to this, like, it's like a industrial park or something, a bunch of offices, and you have to go over this, like, little low water crossing thing. And there's a big turtle sitting in the middle of the road.
Oh, they're going to say something else. Okay.
No, and so I get out, and I'm like, oh, hey, little turtle, I'm going to help you get to the water. Nope. That bitch jumped 3 feet in the air and tried to eat my face. They're aggressive.
Turtles don't jump.
Oh, yes,
How
they
big
do.
was the turtle?
Twice the size of a dinner plate, probably. Like,
okay. And it jumped?
it jumped. It jumped high. And I was, like, jumping away from it, and it was still jumping towards me.
Damn, turtle, you got hops.
And this is, I think, where it reminded me of.
Yeah, how the fuck does this, like, anything I said?
Well, you said you pulled, like, this guy pulled up, and you went over there, and you were surprised because of how old he was. So.
Same, yeah.
So I'm trying to get this stupid turtle out of the road, trying to help save its life, and it's trying to eat me alive.
That's crazy as shit.
Yeah, and this van pulls up, like this big van, and the guy, like, hollers at me, and I walk over to the window, and he just starts talking to me like nothing's going on, like the most natural thing in the world. Meanwhile, he has like a 250-pound pig sitting in his front seat with a seatbelt on.
That's not very nice.
Wearing clothes and a hat.
Who he calls a wife. I'm just kidding.
Wearing clothes and a hat and sunglasses. No shit.
Yeah, it seems legit.
And he's like, oh yeah, those turtles will eat your ass, so you better leave alone. And that's it. I got my car and I left. But
what the fuck? You never got a chance to be like, hey, what's up with the...
Oh, I asked him about the pig and I pet it or whatever, but...
His wife.
No, it was a Yorkshire. The big pink pig.
Damn.
Like Babe, like from the movie
That's
Babe.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely weird. And then, not long after that, I moved to a pig farm, so,
Inspired. Sorry, we had to pause for the cause, guys. Sometimes we just gotta pause for the fucking cause.
Sometimes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes the story just inspires.
All right, where were we though?
Oh shit, it's my turn, isn't it? Joe Ball.
Yeah, we were talking about Joe Ball. We were like in it already.
1896.
1896. That's where we were. Yeah. Okay, guys.
He was one of 8 children. They don't say which children he was, but he was just one of 8. Sorry, it's a little late and it's hot as shit in here.
Yeah, it is.
We're a little bit delirious.
Yep, that's okay though.
Yep.
Pushing through.
So he actually served in World War I. We talked about that.
Yeah.
He was in the front lines in Europe.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Mm-hmm. He came home.
And he's a serial killer? Julie?
Suspected serial killer.
Okay. All right.
So, like, it was
I've never heard of somebody from World War I being a serial killer other than Hitler, who served in World War I, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm not retarded. Yeah.
It's okay. So, he returned from war in 1919. So
that'll do it.
This story, because of how long ago it was, The details are kind of shifty. And
not a lot of pictures.
There were some pictures, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he looks to me, I saw him and I immediately thought, like, okay, so like, the freak show from the fair, the carnival or whatever, the strong man or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Just his demeanor in the picture, just how he was dressed and how he was standing and all of that.
Really? Yeah.
And he was the Alligator Man. Like, immediately I saw like a banner, you know what I mean? Like a freak show banner. I was just like, wow.
Joe's mom was in the circus, so...
Yeah.
We'll have some stories coming up about that. That'll be some of our side stuff for sure, our premium content.
Pretty cool stuff.
So why is he called the Alligator Man?
All right, he's called the Alligator Man because he had alligators.
Well, what a fucking shocker that is. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, he didn't eat people, but he had...
That's fucking ridiculous.
So he came back from the war in 1919, and he was supposed to be in, like, the cotton industry, like his family. His family was, like, really, actually kind of influential people.
Okay. Yeah, it was often, a very common situation to send your son to war as a prominent family back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so he was supposed to come back, and he was supposed to be in the cotton business, I guess.
Is. Okay.
He kind of instead went a different direction. He went into, like, the booming... He was just starting out, I guess. The jazz scene, bootlegging type shit. Like, as soon as... It's like the second that Prohibition ended, he opened a bar called the Sociable Inn. And it was pretty popular. It was really a rowdy place, though.
Yeah,
it was a lot of... Most everybody that was there was like a personal friend or a regular. You know what I mean?
Oh, they all like veterans too, and
it was like, so back then there wasn't a lot of interaction between blacks and whites, and this was a place where everybody was welcome, and so there was a lot of black people and white people and Hispanic people, and so
good old stomping ground down there in Elmendorf.
It was a rough place. It was tons of whiskey and pretty waitresses, is what they described it.
Doesn't sound too rough.
Well, Joe dug a gator pit in the back of the bar, and he put 5 gators in it. Yep, just regular old Tuesday.
What the fuck what is a gator pit? Is that just for disposing?
It was for entertainment.
Okay.
So like people would come and they'd get drunk and then they'd go out there and his favorite thing to do, which is another reason the neighbors hated him so much, was he would feed live cats and kittens and dogs and puppies to these gators. And so the neighbors were like, we got all these black people and all these Mexican people and all these, drunks and rowdy assholes out here screaming all night and partying and getting drunk.
Wow.
And then for the rest of the night, we get to hear a bunch of kittens screaming their heads off and puppies being torn to pieces and
that's crazy.
People yelling and throwing shit. Like, it was just a lot of complaints from the neighbors.
Yeah, I'd like to file a noise complaint.
Yeah.
We don't even have phones. How are you talking to me?
But
that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So he would charge people to watch these shows. Like, so I can just imagine his big stupid ass in there getting drunk and then be like, let's go to the gator pit, and then give me $1.50. and then he pulls out a barrel of cats and starts tossing them in.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like a quite an entertaining show, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I could watch that.
Some gladiator shit.
Yeah. So while he was running this bar that he owned, he started a relationship with a woman that her name was Mitty Goddard. And her nickname was Big Minnie.
Okay.
Hell of a woman. So,
that name sounds familiar. I don't know why.
I don't know. Are you thinking about the one that runs around with Mickey? Or
no.
Big Minnie and Little Mickey?
It's a giant mouse. I'm just.
She wear a red polka dotted dress?
Yeah.
Yellow heels?
Yeah.
Or black heels? I don't know. Am I thinking of the duck that dresses like that?
I don't know why would the duck dress like anything. Doesn't the duck just wear a shirt and like no pants?
That's the Daffy one. I'm looking for the Daphne one. The girl one.
Okay.
With the blue bow.
Lola Bunny.
What?
Whatever.
Lola Bunny.
Let's move on.
Go Space Jam on this shit. So anyway, he started this relationship with Big Minnie. She was one of his barmaids.
Okay.
She was one of his barmaids. And at the time he was in a relationship with Minnie, he was having 2 other affairs.
Big Minnie. It sounds like a chode.
Sounds like a what?
Chode.
I don't know what that is.
It's like a short but fat dick. Big Minnie. They call me Big Minnie.
my god! I just realized that Minnie has another definition other than a name. Big Minnie.
I'm just saying.
It's like the two opposite things.
Yeah.
It's big and it's Minnie.
Yeah, it's like a chode.
Sounds like a Reese's Pieces commercial or something. A chode. That's going into my repertoire.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. You gotta put that one in the toolbox.
So this chode was dating 3 different women at once.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was with Minnie and Dolores Goodwin and Hazel Brown were the 2 affairs on the side, right? Mm-hmm. So in the summer of 1937, Minnie vanished like a fart in the wind. Like she was just gone.
Damn.
Yeah. So after Minnie disappeared, he married Dolores Goodwin.
Okay.
And he's still...
First red flag.
Yeah, and he still was, he's still dating Hazel Brown on the side.
Wow.
Yeah. So after Minnie vanished, he married Goodwin, right? And he still maintained the affair with Hazel Brown.
Right.
4 months into their marriage, Goodwin lost her arm in a car accident.
What?
Yeah. Some actually speculated that he chopped her arm off and threw it to the gators as like a punishment or something.
Yeah, dude, what are they going to do? Crash going 16 miles an hour in their brand new fucking Model T? I mean, Jesus Christ, chop her arm. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
all fucking 8 horsepower, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. This, like, because of the story, there's not good records on it. And
yeah, it's so long ago, too. But still,
Yeah.
I mean, that does sound like it would be something that maybe this guy did.
It could have been. I mean, I don't know. We'll get to that here in a little while. What is it your favorite?
Well, we'll talk about that here in a little bit later.
So, she vanished after her arm did. Like, not long after that. So, she lost her arm in a car accident, and then suddenly she was gone.
Fuck, man. We're 2 for 2.
And then Brown disappeared after that.
3 for 3.
Whoopsie.
Here's your sign.
So, not long after that, 2 deputies showed up. They didn't know shit about these women that were missing. They just showed up because a neighbor reported him. There was a bootlegging barrel that he had stored behind their barn for some reason.
Interesting.
And they were like, what's this fucking guy doing? And they left it. They didn't really say shit to him because they had skirmishes in the past, like, because of the noise complaints. And I think at one point, one of them went over there and was like, look, you need to knock all this shit off. And he was like, how about I just fucking shoot you right now? And he pulled a gun out. And they're like, okay, enjoy your night.
Damn.
So, they weren't real keen on confronting him
Just
about
kind
anything.
of keeping an eye on the situation.
Yeah, they're like, oh, fuck it, it's just a barrel. We have 2,600 acres, whatever. But eventually, they called the police because it had been there for a while and it started to stink like decomposing meat.
Oh.
And so,
your barrel full of steak smells kind of bad. You gonna do something about that?
yeah, they complained. So I think they complained to a third party before they called the police, and they mentioned it to Ball, like, oh, your neighbors are bitching about this barrel. And then, like, the barrel suddenly disappeared, but they still called the police and were like, there's something fishy about this shit, you know?
Yeah.
And so, it was reported to the cops, and they came in to question him. And, you know, it wasn't like they had any kind of hard evidence on him. The barrel wasn't even around anymore. They just wanted to come in and see what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
He could have said it was full of catfish or gator turds or who the hell knows what, you know, and probably it would have been all right. So they showed up and they asked him about the barrel, and he started acting real shifty and suspicious. And so they were like, why don't you just come down with us to the station and we'll talk about it, you know? And he was like, all right. And so he walks over to the cash register. He's like, let me just lock up. And he goes over to the cash register and he punches no sale on the cash register, and it shoots out. And he sticks his hand underneath the drawer and pulls out a pistol and shoots himself in the chest.
Really?
Kills himself. Yeah. The story still goes on, but he does not. So.
Wow, that's a weird place to shoot yourself, too.
Yeah. So after he shot himself, the police were questioning other employees and shit. And evidently there was a guy there named Clifford Wheeler who was a friend of Joe's. And they were bootleggers together. So they had been friends for a real long time. Mm-hmm. And they actually found out that he was Ball's accomplice.
Okay.
And he was real forthcoming. Like, he was like, oh, yeah.
He was super honest about everything.
Yeah, he didn't give a shit. I don't know why.
That was like the friends of McDuff.
Yeah.
Before he even got in the car, he was like, "Oh, by the way, I was with him when we took that girl from the car wash." And they were like, "Oh, all right, we'll just keep getting in and
just keep getting in. Don't alter your
your course of action." Right? Yeah.
So Wheeler was like, So that barrel, that had the body of Hazel Brown in it. He had never gotten around to disposing of it properly or whatever. Some say, he had planned to feed her to the gators. Some say that he had planned to bury her or whatever. But once he heard that his neighbors were about to snitch on him, him and Wheeler took that barrel in the back of his truck and they drove it out to the San Antonio River. And one source that I read said they just dumped the barrel contents over the edge of the bridge and drove off. Mm-hmm. But from what I read, San Antonio River was like real shallow and real slow, and like it seems like it wouldn't have gone anywhere. Mm-hmm. Every other article I read about it said that they took the barrel down to the creek bed or whatever, to the bank, and they emptied it, and it was Hazel Brown's body, and she's already decomposed, and they used axes to like hack her into pieces and then buried the pieces.
Interesting.
So
could have been either one of those.
Right. So according to what I read, that's most likely the case, is that they buried her, because it says that he actually took the police down there and they found pieces of her body.
So yeah, that kind of coincides with what we're talking about then.
Right, yeah. It's just all a matter of which article to believe or whatever.
Right.
So they dismembered her and buried her body parts at the riverbank. So basically, the reasoning for killing Hazel was that he was dating Hazel still, right? Mm-hmm. And at this point...
Right. That's number 3, right?
Right.
Okay.
At this point, Dolores Goodwin, his wife that he was married to, she disappeared. Mm-hmm. And Hazel knew that Joe and Wheeler had killed Minnie. So she was like, I know you killed Minnie. Like, he wasn't trying to hide it, I guess. Wheeler talked about it. Like, they knew that she had known that it had happened. Mm-hmm. So when Dolores disappeared, she was like, you killed fucking Dolores too? Like, you're a piece of shit. What are you doing? Like, so she was giving him shit about killing Dolores. And she wanted to leave him, and he was afraid that she was going to go to the police and be like, he's already killed 2 women, blah, blah, blah. So he killed her to prevent her from leaving him and telling the police. So Brown knew that he had killed Minnie and pretty much speculated that he killed Dolores as well. So Wheeler confessed that he was actually present for Minnie's murder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So what happened was, so he was with Minnie, and he was like, she came up to him one day and confessed that she was pregnant with his kid.
Oh, shit.
And he was like, oh, super.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, he's like, that's fantastic news. I'm not having none of that. Like,
oh, wow.
So he was like, all right, cool. We should celebrate. And so he's like, let's go to the coast. And so he took her to Corpus Christi, and Wheeler went with him. And they drank and they hang out and they sit on the beach and eat and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like the end of the day, and he's like, wow, look at that beautiful sunset. And she looks up at the sky, and he pops her with a pistol, like kills her right there on the beach.
Wow.
And he buried her in some sand pit down there, I guess.
Jesus.
Yeah. So she didn't, according to the information, she didn't get fed to the gators, right?
Yeah.
So, and neither did Hazel Brown. Mm-hmm. So Gator Man is not so gatory after all so far.
Yeah. Just the cats and dogs.
Right. Yeah, he was no friend to your 4-legged pets, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Terrible.
So he killed Minnie, and then he came back. He married Dolores. She lost her arm in a car accident, and then she disappeared.
Quote unquote.
Right.
Car accident, yeah.
Well, everybody was convinced that Dolores had become like gator turds. Like, they were sure of it. They were like, she gone. Like,
yeah.
So, the police actually tracked Dolores down, alive and well. Yeah, no shit. Living in San Diego. She was remarried. This is where it gets kind of sketchy.
What?
Half the stories I read said she was remarried and she was thriving and she was happy, and she actually lost her arm in a car accident. The other half of the stories say she was sitting in a room with a jug of alcohol, and she did this interview about Joe. She lost her arm in a car accident. So there's no...
Okay.
According to her, there's no room for alligator.
None of that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, that was all rumor. So she had basically said that Joe told her, hey, I took Minnie to Corpus and I shot her ass. She won't be giving us any more problems. Now we can be together and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And she was like, I didn't know if I should believe him or not. I thought he was just bullshitting me.
Crazy story.
But she married him anyway, and she never saw Minnie again, and that didn't seem to bother her at all.
Right. Put 2 and 2 together. I mean,
right.
Seriously.
So Dolores basically said she didn't know whether she should believe him when he said he killed Minnie.
I think it's incredible they found her at all. I think it's crazy she was alive and well in another area.
Especially in that time.
Yeah.
It's not like
For real.
In the yellow pages or the
Not
one,
on Facebook or something.
Right, like, oh shit, there's Dolores.
with their one
you
arm
been?
having ass.
Yeah. She basically just up and fucking vamoosed. Like, she got the hell out of there.
Because she knew that he was a killer?
Probably. Either that or she knew he was a lunatic. Either way, or maybe she thought
Or both. Yeah.
maybe she thought she would be next.
Yeah, which she probably would have.
Yeah. After she had moved or whatever, she heard a rumor that Joe also killed Hazel Brown.
Yeah.
So maybe she was still in contact with Wheeler or somebody else. You know what I mean? And that's how the police found her so easily, is they're like, hey, don't suppose you know where we could find this chick?
Ah, that's nuts.
She knew the whole story about how, like, Hazel kept accusing him of killing her, and he kept saying, I didn't kill her. And she's like, well, I know you killed Minnie, and I'd bet $1 million you killed, Dolores. So
she's gone too. So.
Yeah. So she heard that he bludgeoned Hazel to death with a pistol is how she died.
Oh, wow.
So Minnie was shot, Hazel was bludgeoned. Now there's so many versions of this story. They say the number of victims is 2 confirmed, but there's rumored to be anywhere from 5 to 20 plus. Now
That's
Dolores,
a big difference.
Yeah. Dolores seems very certain that none of the gators were ever fed human remains. Because, here's a pearl of wisdom for you.
Okay.
Gators don't eat humans. Gators don't like sweet tasting meat. Everyone knows that humans taste sweet. Gators won't eat us. I call bullshit.
I call bullshit as well.
Yeah, that's happened before.
Wasn't there like a kid eating at Disney World?
Yeah.
Like
a couple of years ago or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give a shit about the sweetness of the meat.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they take the meat down and hide it somewhere until it gets good and stanky anyway. They don't give a shit what it started out as.
Yeah.
As long as it's starting to decompose or whatever, it gets soft so they can swallow it or whatever. They don't care. But she sounds like real genius material there.
That's interesting information. I'm not from Florida. I didn't know much about gators,
Oh, gators will certainly
I didn't know
eat.
they hid their meat to let it rot.
Yep.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I know crocodiles do. I'm pretty sure alligators do the same thing. To an extent. I think gators typically will bite, and then they'll do the death roll, and they'll rip off chunks, and they'll eat part of it, and then they'll tuck away the rest of it, like, to spoil or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's not their main goal, but they do.
That's crazy.
They'll tuck it away in their little dens or whatever. So, there is one guy who claims he saw Joe feed a woman's corpse to the alligators.
All right. It's only one. I mean, it's not...
Well, he showed up at the bar to talk to Joe, and he went out in the back, and Joe was dragging a woman's body towards the gator pit. And they were both surprised as fuck. Like, Joe turned around and was like, oh, well, shit. So, here's how this goes. If you ever say a fucking word to anybody, your family's going to be in this gator pit next, along with you, right after you witness that. So, I'd suggest keeping your trap shut. And so the guy was like, fair deal, Joe. I'll see you later. And he took off and went to his house and was like, get your shit together. Anything that's not nailed down, put it in the truck. We're hauling ass. And they moved away.
Wow.
And he only came back to tell his part of the story after he heard that Joe
After it blew up.
Yeah, after Joe committed suicide and he was no longer worried about, him. He came back.
Because you said Joe was a big, strong dude, right?
It looked like it to me in the pictures. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a freaking black and white picture the size of a driver's license. So,
Yeah, that's true.
But he looked like, he's just like this big looking buff guy wearing a freaking tank top. He didn't look
Like a killer.
he didn't look like a nice guy to hang out with. So this guy came back and told the police, I saw him dragging a woman's body back there, whatever. Joe's accomplice, Clifford Wheeler, took the police to look for Minnie's body and for Hazel's body. It took a really long time. He kept pointing to this particular sandy area. He's like, Minnie's in there. I swear to God, I helped bury her. Like, she's in there. They dug for hours. They dug deep, huge trenches looking for her. And then finally, like, they were just about to give up, and they dumped like a pile of dirt, and some knuckle bones came out of it.
Wow.
He was like, I fucking knew it. I knew she was in here. I'm not crazy after all. And then he took him to Dolores' grave also. He received 2 to 5 years. Some say he served 2. Some say he served 5.
Okay.
But Joe Ball, a lot of people don't believe he really existed.
I've definitely heard the name before. I mean...
Well, they think it's like one of those religious tales of like, like one of those stories that, I can't remember what the term is, but It's like a cautionary tale or whatever. Like
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know. I didn't know there was a word for it. For those.
Yeah, it's...
Tall tale?
No, it's a real long and complicated word.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I'll look it up later, but it's a word you probably haven't ever heard of because I've heard of a lot of words and I had never heard of it before.
Yeah, I don't know.
So anyway, Joe Ball was indeed a real person. He killed a confirmed 2 women, and his accomplice led the police to their bodies. One of the things he did after he killed them is to try to hide their identity if they were ever found was he piled a bunch of old clothing on top of their faces and set it on fire, like kerosene or something.
Interesting.
But that is the story of Joe Ball, the Alligator Man.
That's crazy. He set him on fire too, though.
Yeah, just their faces, just to try to hide their identities.
That's nuts.
Yeah, I was really worried about doing this story just because it's so pieced together and so...
Yeah, you were telling me that the research was very mixed and that it was very conflicting in a lot of areas. So I completely understand, but that's fine.
And I remember
anybody who's born in the 1800s and we're trying to do this kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's hard to get through.
Yeah.
When there's so many different sources, so. No,
that's all good. Definitely some interesting information. I kind of wish that he would have fed more people to his alligators.
I mean,
call me crazy, but I would prefer him to, if he was like a Dexter and was like feeding bad guys instead of kittens, you know what I mean? All right,
if
Joe.
you go by the 20 plus possible victims, then you can believe whatever you want to. There's
right,
nobody to ask.
Who was he dragging into the pit, you know what I mean, when that dude caught him?
Yeah, I mean, because Hazel and Minnie, we know where they were, and we know where Dolores wound up, so who the fuck was she?
You know what I'm saying?
He really liked to engage in affairs with his help, his staff, or whatever. All 3 of those were barmaids.
Did they disappear? You know what I mean?
Well, they've got documentation I read of they went back and tried to locate all of his ex-employees, especially young, pretty women, just to make sure they were safe. And there was...
Hey, you still alive by chance?
There was many that they could never track down.
Well, shit.
There was a few that they did find, and they're like, yeah, we're good, but... But
I wonder if they were ever interviewed and they were like, hey, did you guys see anything weird? Like,
probably.
Look, no.
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, there was a bunch of his ex-employees that they never could track down, that had vanished, maybe they went to freaking San Diego too. I don't know.
They all left together like the fucking Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah. But that's the story of Joe.
The story of Joe Ball and the story of Michael Andrew,
Sean, Mark,
John Robert, Paul, James, Joseph Essex. But two very interesting and very unique cases altogether.
Very different from each other,
Very different from each other and very different from some of the other cases we've been talking about. So that's the story. That wraps it up for episode 10. We always appreciate having you guys with us. Once again, as always, check us out. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts at. Find us on YouTube or our website at thegravematter.com. We appreciate you guys so much, and we'll see you next week for a wonderful episode 11.
Take it easy, weirdos.